Do she really love God as much as she talk about it? Every transition, every closed door, every space of flaws, every insecurity, every obstacle, every fight, every moment I cried, every moment I told God, why me? So y'all, Anchored Conversation has arrived to your doorstep. There is so much that we get to unpack together. There is so much during Anchored Conversation that I wanted to share. Like, if we think of a ship, typically there are people that board the ship. And even during the boarding process, there's something that happens underneath the water to keep the ship stable. It keeps the ship floating, but not sinking. Y'all, welcome to the first episode of Anchored Conversation. Y'all, she did it. She has made it to this mark, made it to this moment, had the opportunity to even fight with self, but self needed to understand who she is, who she desired to be. If I could be transparent, what you're looking at is just the evolving of who I strive toward daily. But I think now is the time that I start showing who's the person behind the camera, who is the person on the other side of the mic, who is the person on the other side of this preacher that y'all see all the time. Do she really love God as much as she talk about it? Like, are there other things about her that makes up who she is? Is there another space to this walk? The mental health strategist, what is it? How can we define that? What does that look like? The kingdom builder, what part of the kingdom are you attributing to? What factors have led to this moment? And then let's be transparent. There's other hats that are being worn that I've not been able to demonstrate. And so guess what? You get personal insight. You get one-on-one. You get to get close to this journey of what Anchored Conversation has been. Listen, my yes to God was so much so a fight in past seasons. But in this transition of my life, in this season, I can't afford to mismanage. I can't afford to stagger in my yes to God. I can no longer afford to self-sabotage what I've been called to out of fear, out of anguish, out of my own insecurities. And so I believe that in transitional seasons of our lives, if I had a voice, if I had a navigator, if I had a voice that was really able to help me understand how to get from to where I needed to be, I think I would have journeyed a long time ago. I think I would have made bigger steps. I feel like I would have made progress just a little bit faster if I had discovered it at my own pace. Listen, let's be transparent. If Tameria had gotten out of Tameria's way a long time ago, I think I would have been a little bit further, but then I realized, no, every transition, every closed door, every space of flaws, every insecurity, every obstacle, every fight, every moment I cried, every moment I told God, why me? Every moment I threw in the towel and then I tried to stand and say, God, why did you throw this back? Every moment that I felt that I couldn't, it arrived me to this person. It arrived me to Tameria Weaver, your mental health strategist, your kingdom builder, the author, the one that refused, the kingdom pusher for heaven's agenda, and the one that say, I refuse to quit no matter what's going on. So y'all, Anchored Conversation has arrived to your doorstep. It has arrived to your screen. It has arrived to your hand. And can I tell y'all, there is so much that we get to unpack together. There is so much during Anchored Conversation that I wanted to share. Like, in conversations, they shift atmospheres. Conversation, they transform perspectives. Y'all saying, why is she looking off? Because I'm nervous, right? Transformation and understanding those conversations, it ignite the healing journey that we need. Some of us, we had been on moments in our lives where we're saying, God, I just need an answer. I need a push. And then some of us, when we're realizing the storm, having an anchored moment in God really does shift that. And so I really want to bring together kingdom builders, entrepreneurs, game changers, trailblazers, relationship builders, those that operate with emotional intelligence, but those that say, listen, I wasn't intelligent emotionally all my life. I struggled gaining that. I want to bring them to this table. I want to bring them to this space. And so y'all may ask, Tameria, what is the purpose? I want us to create a space with anchored conversations that would allow the raw and authenticity of the story behind the trailblazers that you see. I want to bring to the table the game-changing strategy for those that have trailed the blaze of the path that we're choosing to walk on. I want to bring about raw moments where I did not always have it all together, although it may appear to be. I want to have the conversations of how being anchored in God in the midst of the storm did not feel as good when the storm was happening, but because we chose to anchor with God, God really birthed me out. Listen, this anchored conversation, we're merging mental health strategy, mental health principles, and kingdom building strategies and principles that we can bring forth. Listen, the kingdom of God, y'all, there is a thing. And so I was told a while ago, Tameria, your role is to merge the couch and the altar. There's a thing of therapy and prayer. There's a thing called, you know what, I need to sit and I need to have this conversation. But after I gain strategy, I got to go to war in prayer. And so literally merging the two. And so we get a chance to walk alongside with these individuals that's really going to help us to navigate. The purpose is to help us to understand who we are in our journey. And guess what? Quitting is never an option. I was just asked a question about how do I see myself? Like if I was back 5 years ago and kind of moving forward in this journey and who I am now, what would I've said to myself? And the transparency in how we see ourselves, if we were to listen to every naysayer that told us we couldn't make it, if we were to listen to the voices that out of their jealousy or out of their self-envy, out of their pity of not being able to do it, because just be honest, some of us just made the decision to not quit. We wouldn't have made it thus far. I realized along my journey as a woman of God, as a person that don't always have it together, as a person that literally I had to tell God a few times, God, you got to help me with my emotions. My emotions would take me to places that God did not ordain my steps to be. I was so unhealthy mentally because I felt like I fought so long and so hard. Anchored conversations is wanting to help identify, well, what does that journey look like? If I can be transparent for a minute and share with you my why. I would never forget, there was a moment where there were so many transitionings happening in my life. I felt like I was battling wanting the stability in my family. I was battling wanting to have stability in my marriage. I battled finding my purpose. I would see what other people were doing. I would see how success looked for others, and I desired that. I saw how other people were able to narrate, and I could not figure out why it seemed as though everything that I worked hard to gain toward, why was it such a fight? And in seasons where I began to transition in and out of these insecurities, in and out of doubt, and in and out of fear, I wanted to gain some control, but I only found myself submitting to things that were only supposed to teach me a lesson. How many of us can say that? We've submitted to places, and watch my words, y'all. We submitted to people. We called ourselves operating out of loyalty, but loyalty was hindering my prosperity. Oh, that is good. Loyalty was hindering the true nature of what I was called to do. I found myself in a lot of seasons of my life, dimming the light of who I was because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to not be awkward. I wanted to look like that what was on my life, although it was greater, I did not want to look like fear. Yeah, I didn't want to look like the thoughts that I was having that made me feel uncomfortable. I wanted to not look like, Tameria, you're different, embrace it. I did not want to embrace it because the reality of embracing her, it meant that I was being left out of invitations that I felt like I should have been a part of. I found myself in rooms where there was no common interest, but because I was invited, I would just sit even in my uncomfortability. And I would never forget, someone said to me one time, Tameria, you know, how they see you right now, they see you like a damsel in distress. And when she said that, to this day, and I think that was marked maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but to this day it's stuck. You want to know why? Because when I look at what a damsel in distress look like, I look like somebody that did not really have all the answers. I look like I was worn out in fight. I look like I had been tired from being abused and misused by people with the nature of my heart. I looked like I was beyond just uncomfortable. And because I'd fought so hard for so long, I was looking for a space where not only can someone help me get out of this fight, but help me to realize that there are kingdom and biblical principles that shows me how to fight. Truth be told, some of y'all know me from being in church and in ministries where I served, and I served while bleeding. I served while broken. I served when I didn't even have it for myself. I prayed when I didn't know how to pray for myself wholeheartedly. I knew how to get people from being unstuck and out of their transitions. But truth be told, the damsel in distress was crying because she needed the community to build her. And because I dimmed my lights, because I mismanaged relationships, because I did not walk in my authenticity, y'all, Tameria Weaver was a damsel in distress. She was. Anchored conversations now being moved from the damsel in distress to the woman that just says, I refuse to let you quit. I had to gain my wings. I had to embrace how God just shaped me to be different. I had to embrace that, yeah, she don't really know how to have conversations without talking about God. I had to embrace that, yeah, I don't get a chance to get every invitation, but some rooms don't deserve my presence. I had to gain confidence that, yeah, you have an appearance on the outside, but the damage that was on the inside, you got to let God in, and you got to let the people that God have called you to help you with that. Y'all listen, anchored conversations. Tameria, how did you grow from that to this? How did you gain from that to this? I said to God, in this season of my life, I want to be so anchored in you that it doesn't matter what's being said, no matter what's being done, no matter how I'm moving, no matter how the wind blows, I want to be shaped. So showing that is everything to me. So you guys, y'all get sneak peek journey with me. Anchor Conversations is really going to help you understanding the meaning of stability, security, foundation. And even in foundation, when the waves arrives, we don't shift off. I'm smiling because there weren't always seasons of my life, y'all, that I felt that I was stable, that I was secure. There weren't moments in my life that I always felt like I can float. In the midst of the storm, there weren't always moments in my life where I felt that I could walk on water. Can I be transparent? Even today, I don't feel like I'm able to. I'm just making the decision that I'm no longer going to mute myself. The one that always hosts a space of unmuzzle I'm literally unmuzzling myself in this moment with you and on this journey. We get a chance to walk. We get a chance to talk. You get the opportunity to see me. You get the opportunity to see the stories of these individuals that's going to come and sit on this couch. Y'all, it's just like the therapy space, but we get a chance to be real. And the things that y'all and all of my clients that are watching this, yeah, she's talking, but guess what? You get a chance to get a sneak peek of how, Tameria, how do you journey? How do you keep your feeding? How do you survive when it seems like everything have come up under you? How do you take an opportunity to say, even when life is its toughest, how do we gain strategy, Tameria? How do we stand? How do we fight? How can I fight and not lose my faith? It's not an easy task, but we're here together. And so I want to show you guys that, and I want to be transparent that even in your own life lessons, there's growth. Even in your own life lessons, there is some stability that's in there. We just have to identify it. Even in the life challenges that you've met, the obstacles that have met you where they were, that there are things that we can do and we can do it together. Y'all, I made the decision to be transparent with y'all. I made the decision to give you some up close and personal. Guess what? It's time that we start discovering what's on the inside of us. And whether it's broken, whether it's flawed, whether there are some things that you say, Tameria, I'm a little insecure there. It's okay, because guess what? Your insecurity can be the blanket for someone else to pull them up in faith. Your inability to see that is what keeps us drowning. Listen, let me tell y'all something. There's a purpose for each of us. And in our silence, what if there was a voice that says, hey, if you share in this moment, it'll keep me humbled. It'll keep me surviving. It'll keep me from sinking to thriving. That's what the decision is today. So what are we doing with Anchored? Why did you come up with Anchored Conversations, Tameria? Where did Anchored Conversations come from? It came from a heart matter with God. God spoke something to me, and I went through a major season of transition recently. And in my season of transition, God was just very intentional. There was a major tool used during this transition, and it was called a tool of disappointment. And I don't know, many of you, and I'm sure all of you, we've gone through seasons where there's been some disappointing things to happen. We've gone through things where we were challenged in our faith. I'm not sure about you, but going through a season where it's not only transitional, it's disappointing. I had to learn how to grab my footing, because sometimes in our transitions and in those seasons, we give too much credit to the enemy when it's God's hand at work. Yeah. The transitions were so challenged that I did not realize that initially it was God. It felt like that not only was I fighting on the aspect of purpose, but I realized that I was also fighting my family. I was fighting against my own faith. I began to fight against making sure that the enemy knew that you cannot have my firstborn or my last. I found myself warring harder than ever before. And in that place where I felt like I was warring, I became frustrated, because these tools of disappointment, although meant to reroute me, it didn't feel that way. And so I began to cry out, and I said, God, all this time I felt like I had been obedient to where you are. What am I doing wrong? Yeah, who am I talking to? God, where have I misstepped to yield this type of warfare? Where have I mismanaged? So I thought, where have I mismanaged with someone? Y'all, let me tell y'all, I started praying against every altar that I may have built unintentionally. I started praying and repenting about everyone that I felt like I mismanaged. I started praying, and I told God that if this is what you're calling me to do, if these are the changes, God, I will embrace the change, but help me to see me. I love when I get in rooms and I hear other leaders talking about, and let me pause and say this, The change of coming from a damsel to where we are now, it literally was birthed from a decision that I had to make. And I had to, watch these words, grow out of the rooms that I could find myself into to gain into the rooms God called me to. And so I had to get around people that weren't sitting in rooms having conversations about other people. Y'all hold on. I had to... Let me be real. I put myself in rooms and in groups because I need to feel like I needed to belong to somewhere. I needed to feel like I was accepted. I needed to feel like I could have a community. And because I didn't have it at the time, I didn't have the conversation. Watch this. I did not have the anchored conversation with God. God, is this the room? Is this the group? Is this my tribe? Is this my circle? I didn't ask God. I made the decision out of my insecurity. I made the decision out of abandonment and rejection that stimulated from my childhood. The little girl in me did not heal, but she continued to grow. She became a grown little girl. She became a grown little girl that was yearning for a specific type of relationship. She became a grown little girl that was looking for love and looking for acceptance and was tired of rejection because I couldn't show up the way you wanted me to. She grew tired of coming into these rooms that wanted to extract but never deposit. And so how anchored I needed to be in God was not where I was. And so as I began to shift, I realized, Tameria, the company that you keep, the community that you engage in is so important. And so we get to talk about community. We get to talk about how important it is. And in community, for those of you that say no new friends, or for those of you that say, man, I don't need nobody. Let me tell y'all, it's Bible. You see biblically, God uses people to elevate your life. Come on, I'm talking. God uses people to open doors. And in the sense of God utilizing people, come here, Moses. Moses was sent to set the children of Israel free. The bondage that came from their mind, the bondage that they didn't realize who they were, the bondage mentally that they didn't realize they outnumbered the Egyptians. But because, watch this, they didn't look like them, there was a mental bondage. But God chose to use Moses. And listen, y'all, Moses had some things that weren't right about him. The Bible says Moses struggled with his speech. Can I tell y'all a secret about Tameria? I struggled doing this because I was told that every time I show up, I sound like I'm preaching. I was told that my tone and the volume of my voice needed to be altered in the tone of how I spoke. I was talking to a friend today, and we were having this conversation, and I told her, the reality is, Tameria, you're struggling with you. And I allowed the words just to permeate a little bit deeper, and it caused me to be stagnant. Anchor conversation says, Tameria, if that's who you are, make the adjustment, but don't change your voice. Make the adjustment, but maybe the volume was too loud because you was in the wrong space. Maybe the volume was different because they weren't ready for what was on your life. And so anchor conversations we get to have. Solo conversations that challenge your mindset, y'all, can expand your perspective. I want us to gain not only clinical, but practical, spiritual perspectives about our life. And in that, I want y'all to know, y'all have a special invitation. What's the invitation? What's the invitation, Tameria? Each episode, I want you to grab a friend. And you're going to tell your friend, every time we click this button to live with her, I want you to identify, what is it in you that still needs healing? What is it in you that is like a little incomplete? What is it in you that still lacks? What is it that's in you that still desires to latch on to rooms you really outgrown? And it don't mean all the time no new friends. Maybe you just need to elevate your friendships your lifestyle, so that you can come into a place of where you think you should be. Listen, sometimes we got to look at our environment. One thing about an eagle, the eagle don't fly down to play with the chickens at all. And I'm not saying nobody is a chicken, but involving yourself in the right atmosphere, it leaves you room for growth. Sometimes we're in boxes because you've outgrown your space that you continue to fit in. And so I invite you, I welcome you, join me. Anchored Conversations. It's real. It's raw. Y'all, there's no edit or cut to this moment. It's just a flow here. I brought my cards because, truth be told, y'all, this girl getting nervous all the time. Do y'all know that? I'm nervous every time I come in front of God's people. But here is why. I always tell God, you got to go with me, right? But in any case, God, I get in front of you, just pull your girl back. But I don't want to miss something that you wanted to be said. So I still navigate that your voice and your volume, Tameria, is somebody that just needs that hope of what you're speaking. So the voice and the volume, it's okay. I had to make adjustments. What's the adjustment? Y'all, I'm trying my best not to even preach in this moment. So I had to scale off and come back because I'm trying. But can I tell y'all, it's who I am. A friend told me, she said, Tameria, the thing about you is you love God for real. I do. I really do. I love God so much that even in things that don't go right, I don't always look at the person. I look at Tameria, the person. I've learned that self-evaluation, self-awareness, self-absorption, being able to be self-intelligent enough to identify you. I think when I look at the aspect, when I hear people say, oh, at the beginning of the year, y'all know this is so common. At the beginning of the year, every year, everybody's talking about, oh, New Year's resolution. Oh my God, new me, new this. Why does it have to be a new you every time? Like, girl, what did you do wrong? And sometimes it's because we're not self-aware of really who we are. I get this question in my inbox all the time, Tameria, I'm struggling with knowing what my purpose is. Tameria, I'm struggling in knowing what I'm called to do. I'm really not aware of the things that either gear me or deter me. And then for those of us that keep finding ourselves in even unhealthy relational cycles, self-awareness shares with you, if we paid attention to ourselves just a little bit more, gain some mental clarity, gain some kingdom perspective, we'll find that once we find that community, we'll know it because it fits. And so here with Anchor Conversations, y'all, I want y'all to know we're going to do just that. So buckle up. This is just the beginning of something that not only inspires you, but guess what we're going to do? We're going to call ourselves to anchor you. And so if we think of a ship as we get ready to roll off this, if we think of a ship, typically, there are people that board the ship. And even during the boarding process, there's something that happens underneath the water to keep the ship stable. It keeps the ship floating, but not sinking. What's so good about it is it keeps the ship from propelling in different directions, whether it's in the heat of the day, whether the waves or the water begin to shift in different directions. Some of you, if you've been on a boating trip or you've been on a cruise, there's something that happens underneath the water, and it's called the anchor. And the job of the anchor is really to hold it in place, keep it stable, but not hinder the motion. And so in Anchor Conversations, I want to show us how to be mentally and emotionally stable. I want to show us how to propel. I want to show us how to navigate. I want to show us how to heal so that when other people board, it doesn't change the design of who you are and who you were meant to be. It doesn't change the inside of where you are. But can I tell you, it also means that everybody don't get the access. There's a price of admission to be in your life. There is a price of admission to be a part of who you are. There is a price to step onto the sail and to step onto your deck and be a part of your life. But if you're not aware of who you are, if you're not aware of your value, if you don't understand your self-worth, listen, I lacked it for years. I let anybody board as long as you knew my name. I let anyone trespass as long as you knew my name. I let anyone come aboard the ship. And some, they were trying to find ways to punch holes to cause me to sink, but God. And so in order in this season to get to where you are, to where you're going, you got to take this journey. This journey is called self-discovery. This journey is called healing. This journey is called, you know what? I'm done with me not doing what I need to do. And so if you are her, if you are him, you needed a voice. Tameria, I'm going through a season of transformation. Tameria, I'm going through a season where there's so much shifting around me. Tameria, I feel like I'm almost there, but I don't quite have it. I need to get the answer. I need help gaining traction. I need to understand what tools are available, both mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Y'all, I'm called to those 3 pillars. We don't have to do this alone. We were never meant to do this alone. Even Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him on the Mount of Transfiguration. When he took his stand, there were 3. And so listen, bring you somebody, latch on to someone, latch into anchored conversation. Let's grow, let's shift, let's shape, let's evolve, let's metamorph. I was texting and said, y'all, we morphing in this season. Y'all remember the Power Rangers? They changed like 3 times depending on the level of fight. So we have to get in shape and do it. So every ship needs an anchor. Every visionary needs foundation. And every dreamer needs a place to rest their soul. This podcast is offering just that to you. A place to remind you that storms will come, but the right anchor, the right moment, you will not drift. This is Anchored Conversation. And guess what? It's only the beginning.